The annual report detailing royal spending has come out, and one detail regarding one of Harry's biggest grievances has raised eyebrows. To be a walking possible bone marrow transplant. A genetic backup plan. Someone given the smaller bedroom. To be insensitively joked about. To be the spare. According to Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex's DIY psychological deep dive spare is to suffer, to permanently come off as second best in a lifelong race he was never given a choice about taking part in. In his telling, that treatment extended to the handing out of real estate, with H left to live in an embarrassing cottage on the grounds of Kensington Palace while his brother Prince William and his family cosplayed Downton Abbey just across the way in a museum of a grand joint. Except now, the release of the annual sovereign grant report and the briefing provided to journalists around it has dealt something of a blow to the Duke's chronic case of woe-is-meism. As always, smash the like button and subscribe to this channel, this way you won't miss our next video in this same channel. The release of the grant report this week has served as a reminder that for the last 4 years, a vast palace apartment just as large as Willy's big one, titter, has been sitting empty, a property that could well have been the Duke and his wife Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex's home. Who needs that tiny violin now? You see, in Spare, one of the ways that Harry tries to prove his point about lesser treatment concerns real estate, or more accurately, the free real estate which is doled out to members of the royal family like sweeties. When he met Meg back in 2016, he was living in Nottingham Cottage on the palace grounds. He writes of the first time he invited the actor round to his, was excited to welcome Meg to my home, but also embarrassed, not cot was no palace. Not cot was palace adjacent, that was the best you could say for it. To my relief, she made no sign of dismay, gave no indication of disillusionment. Contrast that to when the couple went around to the now Prince and Princess of Wales' lavish 20-room palace apartment, which was renovated to the tune of $7.6 million thanks to the grant. According to Harry, saw Meg's eyes widen as we entered their front door, walked past their front sitting room, down their hallway, into their study. Wow, Meg said several times. The wallpaper, the crown molding, the walnut bookshelves lined with color-coordinated volumes, the priceless art. Gorgeous. Like a museum. And we both told them so. We complimented them lavishly on their renovation, though we also thought sheepishly of our IKEA lamps, our discount sofa recently bought on sale, with Meg's credit card, from sofa.com. Pause here so we can all wipe away that single tear rolling down our cheeks. Imagine the horror of a man in his 30s and his successful and until very recently gainfully employed wife being reduced to having to purchase something from the Swedish retailer or to foot the bill for their own couch. So we supposedly have one brother living in a museum with priceless art while the other is squishing his Her Royal Highness bottom onto a $399 polyester modular set. It would be shocking if the facts quite stacked up. There was back then, and there still is now, an equally large apartment next to the Waleses that reportedly could have been Harry and Meghan's if they had wanted it, hardly second best treatment. According to the Express's royal editor Richard Palmer, this week's grants accounting has thrown up the fact that the 21-room apartment, vacated by the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester who had lived there for more than 40 years, still remains empty. As this week's reporting has reminded us, the teeny-weeny not cot with those lamps and their paid-for via Suits paycheck lounge, was only ever temporary. The Sussexes were never going to be consigned to see out their royal careers stuffed into this bijou's little chocolate box of a cottage that dates back to the 17th century. Rather, back in 2018 it was reported that the empty nester Gloucesters were set to leave their long-term home to make way for the higher-ranked Sussexes. In fact, $2.6 million was reportedly spent on repairs to the roof, replacing windows and the removal of asbestos. That hit the skids when Harry and Meghan instead decided to abandon London to live close to the Heathrow flight path and instead moved to Frogmore Cottage on the Windsor estate. So much for the sheepish Sussexes and their discount sofa. What the Express's reporting of the grant reminds us is that on the housing front, there was never necessarily some great chasm between how the two brothers were treated. The Sussexes could well have had an apartment that was on a similar scale to the Waleses' joint if they had so chosen. Harry, a man permanently destined to prove himself wrong, even admits something similar in Spare. He writes that living at not cot, Got so bad that one day I had to phone Granny. I told her we needed a new place to live. Remember to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. This way you will be notified when next we drop a report video in this same channel.